People have flung their bodies into the streets en masse. Put that in perspective. Think about the amount of energy it takes for an individual to walk out, get in their car, their bus, go somewhere, march, chant, angrily. All the things that an individual have to do in their particular life being put to the side for that very specific moment of rage and indignation with millions of other people, not just across the United States, but across the world. Millions, floods of human beings, all with a singular, at the very least, animosity towards how police do their job, but with broader concerns in regards to how the system itself is set up. I can show you signs, fuck cops and fuck this system. The system being prominent. Because what that person gets is the system is the thing that propagates and requires those cops. When those people get upset and they pull themselves out of the mindset of a political process, because basically that's what's taking place. And that's why there's so much people who are trying to get rid of that and dissipate that. Right now, your political space is not a real thing. It was never a real thing. If aliens landed on the White House lawn, they will have no idea what the White House was and what this thing of government is that you accrue around. It's a thought thing. It's something in your head that you conceptually get, but it's not necessarily there. Your ability to believe in unimaginary things allows you to accrue around, and 300 other million people to accrue around this notion of government. But there's no there to it. A nuclear bomb could hit the White House tomorrow, and the government will still persist, because the government is not necessarily a real thing. My point, though, is that people getting out of the mindset of government when they realize that it no longer is accountable to the populace. And because it's no longer accountable to the populace, playing in the context of this charade is a pointless endeavor. Now, me arguing that people need to pull themselves out of the political space, I welcome this. I think this is the path that needs to take place because, again, if you are participating in a political space that doesn't give you the things that you need and is actually hostile towards those things, then why should I continuously participate? What you need to realize is 90% of the races are won by the side with the most cash. Rational actors, politicians. Where do you lean? 9-1, I don't even know what they care about. I just need to know how much money is in the process. And I can pretty much choose who's going to win. It's not determinative in the sense that one particular race is guaranteed this, but you don't need it. You need statistics. If 90% of those races are won by the side with the most cash, that's a problem. Your people are being bought. Now, if there are any demands, one demand that is rung out is defund the cops. That demand has resonated to such a degree, especially after seeing the behavior of the cops at these protests where they were violent, vicious, brutal mechanisms of the state to repress the righteous indignation and anger. When the public saw that, they recoiled. They saw cops shooting journalists, shooting reporters, beating up people from other countries, and they recoiled. They saw cops beating old people and then lying about it on the record, abusing people. And lying, saying, that guy abused me, and then drag him to jail with head wounds. People, eyes out. They saw cops being cops. The New York Times even runs the story. Cities have this conversation that, hey, maybe we need to stop this cops and reimagine how we'd run and take order and keep order in our society. And is it possible that the level of inequality that's in our society is the thing that, in a gut level way of human beings, we recoil against, especially when it's impoverished conditions and people are struggling, and you know that this is not the way it has to be. This is act of policy, not act of God. You have a choice on where you put your resources, logically. If you have a system of inequality, you are going to incentivize not just crime, but also mental illness, suicides, opioid abuse, diseases of despair. These are things that you as a society make a choice. Do you want to deal with the poverty and get rid of it? In which case you can literally eliminate the need for cops in that area. Maybe you have guys walking around with sticks, but not hostility. Or you could say, I'm not going to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. In which case you need cops. You need something to keep order. You have a choice. The argument of defund the police is not saying eliminate police departments. I guarantee you people are going to want somebody, if a mugger or somebody is coming with a wielding axe. Their issue is the way that police regard the public with the level of unaccountability in the process. The fact that African Americans want to be able to call the cops without getting shot in their own homes or beat up in their own homes. More importantly, that services can be removed from the cops, especially when crime has been going down, and put into systems that prevent the crime from coming in the first place. That's the argument about defund cops. My argument to you is that your political system is fundamentally broken. Your Democratic Party has to justify and explain, rationalize how I am wrong in this. And if I'm not wrong in this, we need a fundamental reimagining of what is taking place here. Because that means that your political system has become a Frankenstein monster, and any notion of rational action that you should expect from your government, especially since you're putting your tax money into that device, is out the window. That means that those people are in the streets, legitimately so, and would need to stay in the streets because anything that they want, if I'm right, cannot be articulated in your politics, which means that you no longer have a representative government. You have something else. Welcome to the Soapbox.
Time with in places where they'll sit down with me and talk off the record or on the record if they wish. Yeah. You know, it reminds me, I was asked a question, I'm not going to have time to go into it all. What's the difference between then and now? Well, I can remember coming into the church, and as we start off back in the 60s, we start off in a black church, and then we go out and see the segregate the Realvo movie theater, and then go out. That's how it was. It was different.
2 points. Just 2 points. One, this letter was released 2015 memo told Democrats don't offer support for Black Lives Matter policy positions. Regardless of what they are doing, the performative nonsense, they don't support what you support from the standpoint of poverty or from the standpoint of policing, and they hate the language defund the cops. Beyond that point, something very specific. The memo, which describes Black Lives Matter as a radical movement that aims to end anti-Black racism, wow, how radical that is, lists several suggestions for how Democratic congressional candidates should handle the encounters with Black Lives Matter activists. If approached by BLM activists, campaign staff should offer to meet with local activists, the memo reads. Invited Black Lives Matter attendees should be limited. Please aim for personal or small group gatherings. Don't want too many of those darkies in there together. Listen to the concerns. It continues. Don't offer support or concrete positions. I hope you notice when Joe Biden says I have hundreds of people, and when I get the opportunity in spaces, I sit down and listen to him. Yes, listening to him, being heard, is radically different than going out and doing something about it. And yet a person who you listen to may come across this notion of, I like that guy, as if that person is going to do something. It is a political posturing, performative, to do that. Don't buy that. What you need to buy is policy. That's all that matters. Everything else is performative trash. The other part to this is that Joe Biden is lying to you. Joe Biden has been lying about the civil rights thing for 50 years now. And like I said, it's utterly disgusting. You don't believe me? Here's Joe Biden telling the truth about the civil rights issue.
During the 60s, I was, in fact, very concerned about the civil rights movement. I was not an activist. I worked at an all-black swimming pool in the east side of Wilmington, Delaware. I was involved in what they were thinking, what they were feeling. I was involved, but I was not out marching. I was not down in Selma.
Yeah, Joe Biden is lying. That shouldn't matter. Now, here's the catch. My only point is not so much that he's lying about civil rights, even though that's pretty heinous. My point is he did not even dignify you with a lie. Why? Your political processes will become so detached from any notion of accountability because we acted as if putting them in, they would just do a job. Missing the point that in the same way that we have a boss for our job who oversees us when we do our job, and if we didn't necessarily have a boss, maybe we wouldn't necessarily do that job, especially if we didn't care about that job or we had other intentions. Same thing is true with them. We want them to go and do their job. They get there realizing that we have taken our eye off the ball and all levels of accountability was drained away with that stupid fucking mantra of blue no matter who. You've had a race to the bottom. Nothing in the standpoint of what is a Democrat. is objective and stick-to-itive. It's entirely relative. So as opposed to having some core that says every human being should have health care, we believe it to our core, you have a relative to Republicans, at least first. Instead of having this notion that we're going to defend Social Security if we have to die on the flag to do it, you have, let's cut Social Security with Obama, or for that matter, let's privatize with Bill Clinton. I'm making the point that there is nothing of the party that is objective, that allows that party to be objective and relative to the people who back it. My main argument here is that the basic problem that we are being faced with, and the reason that those people are on the streets, is because the political instrument is no longer attentive to the needs of the public. And that is seen in monstrous ways. Even this issue right here, whether it's specifically to defund the police or not, you have masses in the street giving you a demand, and your response is $300 million more for the cops. Tone deaf, out of step. But again, you have nowhere else to go. This is the thing that is in their heads. This is the thing that they believe. You will make that vote because Donald Trump is so horrible. You might make an angry vote, but angry. Don't get factored in. Just the vote. They think they have you over a barrel. That's basically it. Medicare for All had 88% of Democrats approving of it. 70% of the public. And that number was going up because we were in the middle of a pandemic. Right now, meaning Medicare for All won the argument. Joe Biden said he would veto it if it magically got to his desk. Nancy Pelosi offers COBRA. Now, when I'm asking and saying that your political system is not having rational action in regards to what the public wants, this is kind of what I'm getting at. Think of the elimination of all student debt. Think of a wealth tax. All of those things were popular. Think of the expansion of Social Security. You have a litany of things that your public wants, and none of those things are on the agenda. And even when the public throw their bodies onto the streets, you still come out with this tone-deaf $300 million plan. You have a litany of issues that the public wants. This notion of the arc of time bends towards fairness, that's not by magic. That's by moments like this, inflection points, where the world comes out and regards you. What the Democratic Party and Joe Biden need to justify is that if Donald Trump is indeed the apocalypse, if Donald Trump is indeed going to rip the world off its axis and destroy democracy, if Donald Trump in the very next term is going to have military on the streets shooting grandmas, then rationally justify. How do you not support all of these policies where these people are saying, do your job, expand Social Security, eliminate all student debt and make those schools free, provide Medicare for all, we're in the middle of a pandemic, do your job. Those are things that the public wants. Those are things that the public is on the street screaming for. Yes, an aspect of this is dealing with the African-American issue and cops and so forth. But part and parcel to that, especially with many of those people on the streets, are those policies that those people and the American public in majority agree with. And the political device doesn't care. You must rationally justify how Trump is indeed the apocalypse, that he is literally going to destroy the planet and our notion of democracy itself. But that is not enough for you to support all of those policies, to organically bring those people together to create a winning coalition to beat the guy who you're calling the apocalypse. This is why I make my case to say your political instrument no longer works. And those people out in the streets, they're there for a reason. And they need to be so for as long as that political instrument is inattentive to what the public needs. Joe Biden and the Democratic Party basically heard your demands and said, go fuck yourself. You have nowhere else to go. Whatever your answer to that of, yes, they're right, yes, they're wrong, that is what this is being presented with. They're going to focus entirely on cops and leave out the issues of poverty because those are the things that affect their donors. We cannot accept what they are putting out. You have 40 million people out of a job. You have nearly as many people without health care. You have 44% of your population before the pandemic living on $18,000 a year. That's a mind-blowing number. I'm sorry, that's a shame. You have 2 million people who are infected with the virus, with over 110,000 dead out of incompetence, with 1,000 dying a day, with no sign of that number abating. You have people who are in the streets out of rage and indignation over the way policing is done, which I still make the point that that is an issue of poverty. You eliminate poverty in your neighborhood, and statistically, you're going to end up get rid of a large share of the need for having cops there in the first place. But nevertheless, the argument is being made. And next month, you have these guys calling for what they're considered calling an eviction apocalypse. An eviction apocalypse. Why? Because all of those people who lost their jobs, they have things to pay for, right? They have to pay for their house. They have to pay for their car. People who even didn't lose their jobs, who got furloughed. Your rate is like 20%. Your government, if it was rational, would have dealt with that. Your government is not rational, so it did not. Your Democratic Party put up performative trash that had no chance of getting passed just to be a showpiece. Even in the context of that showpiece, Medicare for All wasn't there, despite the fact that 88% wanted Medicare for All. This is kind of what I'm getting at. Your political apparatus has no potential, has no capability to do what you wanted to do. Because for so long, you've accepted the argument of blue no matter who, which is basically prided away. They ran far and fast to the right because those were the people that were paying them, and so the benefits that they needed to give was coming from that direction. You never stopped them. You never held the line. And because you never held the line, they just kept going. And even now, Joe Biden could come out and say, I'm going to privatize Social Security, and you still would say blue no matter who. Is that not problematic? Is that not problematic? I'll leave it here. Like, share, subscribe.